Welcome to the VET S.O.S podcast. Remember, don't drown the sea of transition. Grab the VET S.O.S Lifeline. You know how we love some mentorship here at VET S.O.S. It's a big thing for us. We talk about it all the time. And today we're sitting down with Evan Guzman, co-founder of Post-Veterati, a mentorship program for veterans. Very excited to jump into this and learn more about this program. This comes out of the wake of a program called Veterati, which is something that I know Keith and I think Keith, you used it. I know we were both mentors on it at one point, but I used it daily during my transition. I was doing 5 calls a week easy.
Wow.
And was a big part of my transition. So definitely believe in the mentorship piece, love the idea of being able to find mentors across all markets and brands and what have you to learn what you want to do and where you want to go. So very excited to get into this conversation. I'm also excited because I see the beginning of a streak. 2 in a row. He's here for 2 in a row. This streak is about to start. Very excited about that. How you doing, man? Love having you back in the jump seat, brother.
It's good to be back. I don't know. I mean, 2 in a row means either I'm doing something right or you're low on options. So, but it is great to be back in the saddle twice in a row, and hopefully it keeps going. We keep the streak going. How are you doing though? Because I was gone for a long time, and I know you missed me. How have you been mentally with me gone for so long?
I felt like what was it? Team America? Was that the name of the movie?
World Police, yeah.
Yeah, you know when he was singing "I'm So Lonely." Oh man,
Might little different in the height.
Yeah, a little different.
From the,
but cause I think he's closer to Eric's height. All right, so enough of that. Evan's already over there going, what did I get into today?
What in the world?
You're left out.
Most of our guests do.
All right, so we're sitting down with Evan Guzman. He's a nationally acclaimed leader and trailblazer with over 20 years of experience in strategic talent acquisition, corporate development, and employment branding. He was the founder of Verizon's military recruiting and engagement program, crafting an award-winning initiative that set the gold standard for military engagement nationwide. He has received countless accolades for his work supporting veterans. Today, Evan leads Millbrand Project, a consulting firm dedicated to empowering businesses to succeed in military hiring, championing veteran entrepreneurship, and driving unique military-connected projects. He also co-founded Post-Veterati, which we're talking about today, a groundbreaking digital mentorship platform devoted to supporting the military-connected community through career transition, readiness, and veteran-owned startups. So happy to have you on here, Evan. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. Thank you. Appreciate the opportunity.
Oh, absolutely. And so excited to get you on here. It's way overdue. Like we said in the opening, this is one of those things that we're passionate about. We've had other mentorship platforms on, and like I said, I know Keith and I were both a part of Veterati and all that. So just completely love the fact that we have these mentorship platforms out there because they're huge for us. But before we jump into that, let's start with how you got to wanting to, or even to working with veterans in the military community. Like what led you to that, from growing up and whatever. How did you wind up working in the veteran space?
The one thing I didn't mention was the first job I ever had was working for Meals on Wheels. And it just so happened that one of the accounts I had was this big facility where service members, wounded service members, Vietnam vets, World War II, all lived in this community with their spouses and all. But I didn't know that 3 months into it. So I always felt like it was a calling to serve the military-connected community because it was always there whenever I got involved in something. And I felt that, if I'm going to lean in, then I'm going to lean in hard and really try to be a force multiplier for the military-connected community. But how it all started was when I was working for a private security company. They did similar work to Blackwater and Triple Canopy and, types of businesses. And I was recruiting folks who were transitioning out into these other jobs that brought them back to different places where they probably served at one point in uniform. But now they're contractors. But I started to really realize that a lot of these service members weren't interested in working back in the same theater. They wanted to come home, find something else to do. But it seems like, but I got to pay the bills. So I kind of feel forced into this, even though I'm trying to transition out. So that sort of became, for me, an opportunity to really make a difference for those who give so much for us. It's sort of a way to return the favor. It's sort of how I say, more than thank you for your service, right? I give them a little bit
Yeah.
more. I become an ambassador. So ever since then, I've just been anywhere I went, whether the American Cancer Society, Verizon, and a few other places, I've always recruited service members. I always became an ally to them to make sure that they were seen and heard.
That's fantastic, and you bring up a fantastic point, in my opinion. About service members not wanting to work in the same theater, and I would say even the same job. And I was one
Yeah,
of those, career intelligence professional, and I didn't want to go work for the alphabet soup. I didn't want to go live in D.C. or anything like that. So, you know, learning how to figure out, okay, what skills have I learned and how can I apply that across different, organizations and businesses and things like that so I can still capitalize on my experience,
that's right.
but, make that transition into a completely different field. So I think that's a fantastic point. That's huge for us.
Yeah. My brother was in the Marine Corps. He was a saw gunner, right? When he came home, he was a little different, right? He wasn't the same person, slightly, but the struggle came once he came home, figuring out what can I do next? Because the
Yeah.
rejection was something they took pretty seriously. It's like, I can do this, all these skills that I have, but the only thing I can find is a security job. Doesn't make sense, right? So if you're an 0311 Marine Corps, it's like you're put into this. So he needed some guidance, he needed some help. Uh, I don't know how he did it, to be honest with you. He's a CPA accounting. Okay.
Nice.
And I don't know where he got this from, but there was something within the Marine Corps training and that resiliency that really kept him focused. So he
Yeah.
got an opportunity to work, stay focused, provided for his family. But it was during that time that he started to go through this process of what do I want to do? So we created a pros and cons list. What do you like to do? What do you don't like to do? He goes, I like playing with numbers. I like helping people and being honest with them about their finances. So one thing led to another. But that to me was personal. But I know that there are a lot of folks that are transitioning out. They're really just trying to figure it out for themselves. Maybe it's a little bit of what they did in the military with something new, but then something that will allow them to grow. Because it's like many that I've spoken to, I believe, want to continue to serve in some way, right? So it may not be in law enforcement, but they can serve in a different industry like energy, like broadband. So a lot of security aspects and making sure that, we protect our infrastructure. So I find that these career opportunities in various industries have really opened doors for a lot of these folks that weren't necessarily thinking in that way. They were just going to the job fairs, seeing what was available. And if they were lucky to get a job, the challenge was, can they stay there more than a year? Right. And that's
Oh
the
yeah.
other thing. Yep.
Yeah, once again, you're just hammering home great points here, and Keith, you and I have talked about this. We had plenty of guests talk about this between the soft skills that we bring, outside of our MOSs and our daily jobs that probably are almost more important at times than some of the other things. You got the mental aspects of, like you said, Evan came home a little different, right? So there's some mental things you got to work through, and the not dealing with rejection well, something else we deal with,
Yep.
staying at a job for longer than a year,
Yeah.
and all
Right.
these things we continuously have come up. I mean, well, what else is there, Keith? I think he's hitting them all.
Well, he is, and I know we're about to get hit or to hit. Wow, we're about to get heavy into and hit on the post veterati thing, which is going to be mentorship heavy. So before we pivot there, though, I'd like to just go because you've been talking about like the employment piece. So I almost want to quickly ask about the employer side of the house, right? So when you're deep in employer consulting with your Millbrand project, and a company calls you and says, we want to hire veterans, right? Because everybody supposedly does. What do you look at first to decide if they're actually serious or if they're just chasing that PR halo kind
Yeah,
of thing?
yeah, that's part of that what they call CSR, that corporate social responsibility, which is interesting because they're really more to capture the stories of what the corporations are doing to make them a company worth, coming towards. So what was interesting is though, is every corporation is different, and I think the best way to move forward is really every company has an infrastructure for hiring. The challenge is how do they recruit more military talent, right? And I like to refer to them as former military professionals because that's exactly what they are. They may not be serving, but they've served in some capacity where they were responsible for a lot of different things. So employers are just saying, hey, we want to hire veterans, but they haven't really in the very beginning. Now it's different, but I'm talking about maybe 14 years ago when we began to really get involved. Is it seemed to come from a place where it's a nice thing to do versus it's a business imperative. If you're looking to hire quality, experienced individuals, then I want you to take a hard look at these service members that are transitioning out. Look at their MOSs, because it became more charitable feeling than a real business imperative. And I wanted to make the distinction that, what do you look for in candidates that you hire, right? The basic question. That's how you know where they are. Most would say, someone who's dependable, reliable, takes initiative, can solve problems, not always come to me. So I said, that's exactly what the military trains for, right? Because when you're out there in theater, you can expect unexpected things to occur, and you sort of train for that. But in business, it's the same thing, and the difference is that, are you going to lean in and just be honest and say, I didn't know this, I'm going to learn, I'm going to get better at it? Or are you going to make excuses? And I find that at Verizon, what we learned is they just told it like it was, because I can't do that. I don't have the proper training or the right gear. I'm not going to climb that pole. They're pretty specific, but in times when there was inclement weather, almost every time that there was a community that got their power back, it was because they were former military who went out there and got it done. And that wasn't something that we did a survey on. It was just something when we identified, hey, there was 12 people here in New Jersey after Sandy, that big old Hurricane Sandy came here in New Jersey and destroyed everything. There was a cluster areas of like, how did they get their power back? And they would analyze things. So were they more experienced or whatever? And it just turned out that they just happened to be former military professionals. We just said, yeah, it's just snow. You get out there, do what you got to do. So employers then started to change their perception of service members and realizing that this is a real talent group that we need to take more seriously. So then they stepped it up. But a lot of times it was really just find me someone, but if they don't have the skill sets, they would reject them, right? So they were hiring more for just, they say they want to hire veterans, but if they don't have this skill set, then they're not going to be hired. So then we had to change the dynamic. And so we just basically gave them an opportunity to find other pathways through apprenticeships, through like paid apprenticeships, just to get them in the funnel. Because once they were in the funnel, they basically sold themselves because they were able to deliver results. If you ever see two veterans on a team call, and when they talk, you see the difference in terms of how they think, how they approach things, and then how they execute. So I think they really made the service members in workplaces today are setting the example for those transitioning out.
Yeah, I totally agree. The one caveat, though, I will add to that is I think it's also important that veterans understand that we're the 1% joining the 99% in this sense, so we have to be able to assimilate to the culture as well.
Yeah.
I've seen a lot of veterans fail because they come in with the military mindset still, and they're expecting everybody to transition around them.
Yeah.
Instead of, no, you're coming into a new world, and you're the minority at this point. Like you need to learn to adjust. And I think that's one of the hard parts we face with the transition.
Yeah. I totally agree. It's, hard. It's just habits. Like my brother interviewed, his hands were like this, like he was in a peer. I was like, you need to be more relaxed, right?
In a promotion board.
Yeah. And it was really mostly questions about not what he did, but how he and his team operated. And the hard part is really talking about yourself. Like, what did you do? Because, oh, okay, well, I was responsible for $20 million of asset and this and that. Because they're not used to speaking as individuals. They speak as a team and as a unit. And so they have to kind of break that down. And that's where Post-Veterati comes in that breakdown to figure out how you want to sort of present yourself. And that feedback, as you know, being mentors makes all the difference. Look, the best resource that the military connected community and just anybody in particular has is other people, right? So that's the whole point of this platform, is to connect with the right people in the hopes that will help accelerate transition success or elevate to the next level.
100%. I completely agree with that. I think one of the things that we've said countless times is we're trained to go to our chain of command. In this sense, you can't go to your chain of command. They don't know. They've never done it. So sorry, Keith, didn't mean to cut you off.
No, that's fine. But I think we it was a perfect pivot into
Yeah.
Post-Veterati.
The guests are
So
all over today, aren't they? They're just
yeah,
transitioning us where we have to go.
yeah. So let's go down that hole for folks that don't know. Like I'm on Post-Veterati, but for folks that don't know, how does it work? What does it do? What can they expect?
Yeah. So, essentially it's a sort of booking system, right? I'm going to book a call with someone. And so just so you know, we built the version 1. And as you know, the reason we called it Post-Veterati is keeping in the spirit of Veterati. It's just after its thing. So it's Post-Veterati was born. I found a couple of investors who said, let's rebuild this. So we had to do it from the ground up. I wasn't able to acquire the IP or anything else previously. It's unfortunate, but one day this is going to make one of the best entrepreneurial stories ever. Because how does something that worked so well close its doors, right? And that's a subject for another day. But lessons learned there. So we put this together real simple. Simply, we want people to find the right industry insiders. So if you're transitioning out and you're just curious about, what, I want to start my own podcast too. Who can I find, right? So if they do a search or go to, Post-Veterati, they can search by company, by name, or just by interest. Well, the new version will be based on that, meaning if you go and look for someone who's in an industry, it'll find mentors in that industry and show their availability so you can book it. So the way it works is you sign up, profile. We have matching capability. So once you put in your skill sets and what you're looking for, it'll match those skills to mentors to give you like a rating. So you can help, maybe connect with the best mentors. So it's not as random as one might think. It's really like I picked Sean because we had a 66% rating, so I booked them. Once you
I
book
always
it,
tell people it's like Tinder. It's like Tinder for
yeah,
mentorship.
yeah,
It's going to
and
match
listen,
you based on your
listen,
profile. So
yeah, and we do that because it makes people feel more comfortable with the mentors they're going to engage with. But you'd be surprised how even at a 10% match, they'll still book you simply because of what you have expertise in the industry. So once you book it, the mentor says, yes, we're good to go. It automates the connection there. So this way, you're not even picking up a phone. The phone calls the mentee and then it calls the mentor. Then you start talking. The new version has Zoom. A lot of mentors have said, I've got some resources I want to share with my mentees. And so they set up Zooms. But usually 92% of the first calls are just calls. And then from there, as a second call, they go to Zoom. But that's the whole point of it is who can I speak to who's already available, a warm lead that's already identified their availabilities, and I can just book one. I book someone every Friday at 2 p.m. I just put it out there. Whoever wants to talk with me, I'm always available. And so we're finding that a lot of great story. You have to see some of the data that we're collecting. And I think one day this can be something that we can talk about in terms of transition, because we're going to add this AI capabilities to analyze all this data. Like what is the one common denominator amongst all transitioning service members is that feeling of isolation. I've applied to 100 jobs, never hear back, right? So you're competing with the AI algorithms, and they've gotten even more and more sophisticated. These systems are designed to weed you out. How do you get an opportunity to even, be seen and heard? And this is what Post-Veterati exists, because these individuals, these mentors, can refer you, can help you tap into the hidden jobs market that you never even heard about. So that's the whole point of what we're doing here, is really bridging two communities. My vision for this is to have a grateful nation of service members. A grateful nation of Americans providing support for service members by just having a conversation, right? What better way? You don't have to donate. Time is the new commodity when it comes to supporting our military connected community.
no,
Absolutely.
absolutely.
Yeah.
I think
So
that's a big piece.
I want to kind of hit both the mentor and the mentee side for our listeners, but from the mentee side, let's start there. So, what are the most common ways you've seen transitioning service members misuse or underuse, either post-veterati or just in
And
general? And how should they flip that script? What are they doing wrong? What are they not doing enough of? And how do they flip that script to correct it?
yeah, to be honest with you, I think for those who really don't know what they want to do or have in mind, it's a little difficult, because even when you speak to a mentor, right, the mentor doesn't understand what your goals and objectives might be. It's hard for the mentor to even know how to interject and support you. So I find that we do a little training now for mentees to leverage the platform more effectively. And that is really about self-discovery. You need to identify first who you are. What do you like to do? What are the things you don't like to do? What are you trying to avoid? And what are you really trying to lean into? Because once they have that, they can articulate better to mentors in terms of what it is they're looking for. Okay, listen, I'm not really good at math, but I want to work in the finance industry. What's a good way to move forward in the finance industry and sort of learn and grow? And now that you have a good sense of what that is, whoever you speak to is going to try to provide the best guidance. So I think it's important to know a little bit more about yourself and be honest with it, right? Don't pretend you're good at something when you're really not. There are people that want to get into things that think they're going to be good at it, but they've never been tested. And then they go out there and then they get really disappointed and then they learn the hard way. I think that mentors offer mentees an opportunity to sort of hear themselves sort of talk about what they want. And then the mentors can really help them to help guide, but if you know what you want to do and you set the mentorship call with, I have 5 specific questions to ask my mentor, the mentees have to walk away with something for that call. If they're just rambling on or they let the mentors ramble on, it's not the most effective engagement and based on what we've learned. What we learn is when mentees are prepared with 5 key questions to identify that the next mentorship call, because the mentor will refer other mentees, say, hey, right now I spoke to Keith and Keith recommended Sean and then Sean recommended Evan. And before you know it, I'm moving 5 times faster than just doing it alone.
Yeah. And one of my first questions I always ask is, what do you want to be when you grow up? Right. And I love it when they have something for me, they have an answer for that, because a lot of times they don't, it's like, they're like, "Oh, I don't know. I want to do something in leadership, or I want to help people." And I'm like, okay,
Yeah,
we need to tighten this shot group quite a bit. So,
that's right. And even
Sean,
mentors.
did I cut you off? Okay. Go
No,
ahead, Evan.
no, I was just saying, even mentors have said, I struggled a little bit because this person didn't really know, my mentee didn't know exactly what they wanted to do. So
Mm-hmm.
they came up with one question, right? And that is, if you could do something for free, what would that be? Right? Sort of gives them a sense of what are you
Yeah,
passionate about? And then now you have something to sort of
absolutely.
latch onto.
I have a very similar. I tell them, first I tell them the perfect job doesn't exist, but for hypothetically, in argument's sake, let's say it does, what would it be?
Right.
Right? If you had the perfect job, the pay, like you could be, a janitor, but the pay was still $1 million a year. Like everything was perfect about the job. What would you be doing? And again,
Yeah.
it helps identify the passions that they have, and okay, let's start there and see what we can drill down on. So for the mentors, what would you say to a possible mentor that's out there listening right now, like, and they're hesitating, right? They don't know about the bandwidth, or they don't know what kind of commitment it would take, and they're worried about what. 'Cause I remember when I started mentoring, I'm like, I was terrified. I don't know what I'm going to tell these people.
Yeah.
What's one concrete outcome that you want a new mentor to chase in their first 90 days on the platform?
Honestly, if they just share their own personal journey to how they got to where they are, that story on itself will provide some type of feedback or good information for them to take action on, right? What did you do at first, right? And you're going to tell them, this is what worked. This didn't work out so well for me. So now they're walking away with more of a frosty a feeling of, I have a better idea now because, Sean shares some insights. But for mentors is, don't be afraid to share your successes, your failures, because that information really helps a mentee to discern and or to make the right choices on their own. And that's really what it's about, positive momentum, right? Like if no mentor will ever say, yeah, I wouldn't get into that industry. You're not going to make it. You don't have this, you don't have that. And look, I've had calls that came out really rough. Some rough conversations with some folks. And yeah, this guy said I shouldn't even be looking in that industry because I don't have this, this, and that. Or I seem too timid to be in the entrepreneurial world because it's cutthroat. But if mentors just need to be upfront, honest, and just share your story. There's no anecdote. There's just listening from other people's shared experiences and their journey, and then helping others figure out, you know what, maybe I'll do a little bit what Keith recommended. I'll do a little bit about Sean. but it's so much better than just trying to figure it out on my own.
I, th- I think, and the truth bomb over here, Keith will probably agree with this. Is I think you also need to make sure that you're being honest. Like, I mean, I get it. Don't tell somebody flat out you can't do that. You know, I would explain how you can get there. You
Yeah,
know, if you
Yeah.
want to get into cyber, I would recommend doing these things.
yeah,
Because you're coming from the band, for example. Uh, not that I'm talking about anybody specific, but helping them get to where they want to be, right? And sort of providing those points where, because I agree with you, I would never flat out tell somebody you can't do that because
right,
we can put
Yeah.
anything we put our minds to. It may take a lot more work, but it is what it is. But we're also there to encourage and don't blow sunshine up their fourth point of
exactly.
contact, right? Be honest with them. And one of our good friends and former co-host Eric, he likes to use the term the velvet hammer. Being able to be truthful without being hurtful, right? And
Right,
and
Yeah.
making sure they understand, what's out there. So,
that's right.
um,
Yeah.
Yeah,
yeah, and everything you've brought up about what you guys are doing post Veterati is exactly how I used it. I
yeah,
had a whole list of all these skills that I could do either by education, training, experience, and I was just going down the list, crossing things off. Nope, I don't
yeah.
want to do that. Nope, I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
Veterati taught me that I was never going to get a PMP after talking to guys that had a PMP. I knew that I was
Yeah,
never going to get one. It's
yeah,
so in that way, it helped me narrow down what I wanted to do when I grow up,
that's right.
so,
Yeah.
use the tools for what they are.
Yeah,
And, like you said, people are then recommending you to other people. And honestly, Keith, I don't even remember, were we I don't know if we were a Veterati contact or not, but somehow I got
I think
directed
we
to
were.
Keith. Yeah, at some
I think
point,
you did.
and,
that a story right
it's,
there. But
yeah.
from Veterati.
Yep.
See, and there are a lot of great stories that are happening out there. I've
Mhm.
seen heard stories between mentees and mentors going into business together, right? Or they get hired, or they get referred, or they get networked in a way
Yeah.
that they would have never found at a job fair or whatever. Because again, it's that human connection. People who appreciate. Look, we're going to be on the 250th anniversary, right? 250 years celebrating, and a lot of that is owed to our military, right? Marine Corps celebrating 250th, the Army. So these folks, and we know what's happening in theater now, right? What's happening in overseas, and really, and I've been analyzing this and really seeing this is unprecedented what's been happening out there with and how precision our military is, and then when they transition out, those are some amazing skill sets that I think need to be
Yep.
absorbed within the business, but more importantly, in corporate America on the entrepreneurial side of it. There's so many veterans that have great skills, just need the right pathways. And like I said,
Yeah.
people is the best pathway toward achieving success. My hope is that this platform becomes the preferred platform to give back as a grateful nation to say, you know what, I'm going to talk to a veteran this year. A conversation promise pledge. Just because, look, 93% of those who, I'm sorry, 73% of those who mentor will mentor again right after that first call. And then the momentum keeps going. Then it's like, you know what?
Yeah.
I feel comfortable. I want to share information. I learn a lot about myself as a mentor just by talking to others. I've had people have been laid off from their jobs, still mentoring, and somehow mentoring is helping them as well because they're like, I'm in a bad position too, so I can appreciate where you're coming from. And then before you know it, they're becoming like best friends and best partners. And so I love it. And soon we're going to start telling these stories. And there's some amazing stories out there, and maybe part of that initiative to how has connecting with someone helped you. It's not just the platform Post-Veterati. It's how did this connection help you get to where you are today?
Yeah. Absolutely. So this episode flew by, and I could go another hour and a half for sure because this is definitely one of my most passionate topics. But we are at time. So
Okay.
but I'm so glad, Evan, that you're able to come on and get the word out even more so about Post Veterati. Amazing opportunity to find mentors. And I will just say that um I always tell folks, don't just go find one mentor either, right? Like, we don't have all the answers. I have my strengths and weaknesses. Sean has his. Evan, you have yours. So I tell, build a board of advisors. Get a team of like 10 mentors that you can bounce ideas off of all of them and get their differing opinions and see if there's a common thread. You know, You
Yeah.
know, if they're all telling you that you're crazy with this idea, you know, that kind of thing. But no, yeah, build a board of advisors to leverage and rely on. And it really is the key. So, before we wrap this up, Evan, I do want you to give you a chance though to tell folks how to either get in touch with you to
Sure.
support or partake, but also where to find Post-Veterati and how to sign up.
Yeah, so hey, anyone can find me on LinkedIn, Evan Guzman, real simple. I'm out there. Or postveterati.org is post-veterati.org. If anyone's just even thinking about it, mentee mentor, I would recommend that they sign up. The last thing I want to say is that we have a version 2.0 that we'll be releasing sometime in June. And wait till you see all these bells and whistles compared to what Veterati was. This is now a whole different level of engagement where mentors will soon be incentivized for their efforts and time. So more to come on that.
Interesting. You
Yeah.
got me intrigued. I'm curious. So,
It's another episode right
all
there.
right. You heard it here first, folks. So, yeah, no, that's awesome. Thank you so much for coming on the show, Evan, and all that you're doing for our service members and even veterans and the whole community in the military. It's a huge value add, and we're grateful for everything you've done. And on behalf of the entire VET S.O.S family, we want to thank everyone for spending their time with us today. It's always great having you along for the ride. Don't forget to check out all of our other episodes and keep coming back for more stories, insight, and support from the VET S.O.S crew. If you enjoyed this episode, give us a follow, share the show, and tell a friend or two. Toss your battle buddies, fire team, shipmates, and wingmen that flotation device they need in transition so no one drowns in the sea of transition. And as always, remember to grab the VET S.O.S Lifeline. And